In this video, I want to show you how you can create a graph that has a line on top of columns. And the reason you would do this is when your message is you're comparing to either a goal or in this case an average, some standard value that you want to compare to. So we can create this in Sheets. So when we go to our Sheets though, the thing to notice here is how the data is set up. So there's a very specific data setup we have here. In the data, I have two data series, one for the sales and one for the average. Notice the average has a value before, in a row before and a row after the sales. That's because we want the line, the comparison line, to extend beyond to the left of the columns and to the right of the columns. If we didn't have these extra rows above and below, then the comparison line would stop in the middle of the columns. The other thing that we're using here is we're using the annotation feature of Sheets. And so what I've done in the annotation, I have said I want an annotation on the last data point for the average. And notice what I've done is I have driven this as a formula. So I've used, and again, you can pause the video if you want to look at this formula and study it some more, but I've had some text, I've added some space, and then I have used a formula text. So I'm taking the value, the average value, and converting it into text using a specific number format. And in the notes of this video, you'll see a link to an article that tells you about how to format these number formats, so that if this average changes or when it changes, the annotation, the label, is automatically updated. This saves you a lot of manual effort in redoing the graphs when the data changes next quarter, next month, whatever it is. So to create our graph, we're going to select all of our data, including our annotation, and we're going to say Insert a Chart. And the chart type that we're going to choose is this one here called a combo chart. It's actually in the line category, but it actually is columns and a line. So when I select the combo chart, you'll notice it assumes the second data series is the line. And because we have that extra row before and after, the line extends beyond the left and the right of the columns. So I'm going to insert this, and now we're going to format it. Let me move it over here. I'm going to use our advanced edit, and we can get rid of the title because the slide already has a title. We don't need the legend because, again, the labeling does that for us, and the title of the slide. The only other settings that we may want to change relate to showing the actual values. So in our vertical axis, what we may choose to do is we may say that, hey, you know what, we don't even need to see the labels because we're going to the labels for the axis. We're just going to use data labels for each column. So we can set the color of the labels to none. If we want to change the grid line color to be maybe lighter, if we need to, or none at all, because now the grid lines don't matter because there are no labels, we can turn those off by setting the color to none. Now for the data series, we want to choose our sales data series, and we want to go down and add the data labels. So now we have our graph that shows the value for each of the regions and the average. We could get rid of this title down at the bottom here as well if we wanted to. It's your personal choice. Now we've created a graph that has a line, which is labeled, and those columns. Now we, like we do for all graphs, we copy it and go to our slide, say paste, link it to the data, and now we can resize it to be whatever we need it to be. So that's how you create this graph of line on columns in Sheets and Slides. When you go to a professional presentation program like PowerPoint, it gives you a lot more flexibility. You can create the graph in PowerPoint. You also have a lot more choices around the labeling of the line. You can make the line dashed. You can make the columns a different width. You have a lot more features, and so it gives you a lot more formatting when you use a professional presentation program.